much less hold myself a party celebrating the book. So thank you all for being here. Yeah. Okay, where are the lambs and Lori? Is Lori out here? Lori. So Lori Lamb and the other lambs, raise your hands. This is Lamb's Garden Center that we're at, and thank you so much for letting me have my book party here. Okay. If you feel like a politician, please hold your applause till the end. Also, some of you have heard, but some of you may not know, raise your hands if you're a model railroader. Come on, guys, raise your hands, get them up there. This is the home of my model railroad club. I've been a railroad club member here for over 20 years. Wow. We have a garden railroad down this way, and inside we have HO trains running. So feel free after my talk to take a look at the trains. Now, 9/11 is coming up on Tuesday. If we could just have a moment of silence and remember those who lost their lives and their loved ones. And if we could say a prayer for those who are being affected by Hurricane Irma and have been affected by Hurricane Harvey. I have to say thank you to Irma. So Timmy, Ellie, and Nathan, raise your hands. 3 of my grandkids are here because of Irma. Oh, good. They live in the Miami area. My daughter Lisa, raise your hand.
Where is she?
She's over there. She was going to be flying in yesterday, but because Irma was coming, they hopped in the car a few days ago, so they're all here. Her husband is holding his own in Tampa area, so prayers for them. And then my daughter Jen. Jen, where are you? She is from Sarasota, and she had planned on being here also. So her husband and daughter are now in Alabama, so they evacuated, thank goodness, because she was in a panic when they said they weren't going to. And then my youngest daughter, Danielle, say hi. Safe and home in Oshkosh. Thank you for not moving to Florida, Danielle. Okay, and now about my book. Why did I write my book? I never planned on being an author. When you look at the book on the back, it says I'm an accidental author. That's what my daughter Jen dubbed me. Because I never planned on being an author, never dreamed of it. And here I am standing in front of friends, family, co-workers, colleagues of my husband. And so Paige, where's Paige? Paige is a student at UW-Madison. And her mom had moved to Florida before she finished high school, and Paige said, I'm not going to Florida. So she finished high school in Milwaukee, and when it came to college, who had to do it? What a tragedy. So we had so much fun going to testing and visiting the campus, and just picking her up for holidays. And as we would drive to and from Madison, we would chat about everything and solve the world's problems, and I would talk about some of my Red Cross adventures, and it dawned on me that yes, my grandkids know I've been a Red Cross volunteer, but they didn't really know the extent to which I did that volunteering. So that was just the germination. So Elaine, raise your hand. This is my good friend Elaine from Milwaukee. We've been friends for over 30 years. And Elaine is really a writer. Don't let me fool you. I might be standing here, but she's the writer. She writes great stories about her family and humorous things. And one day she said to me, Debbie, I'm going to a conference, the Wisconsin Writers Association conference. Why don't you come with me? Well, you've written a couple poems. Bring those along. I'm like, okay. So we went to this conference here in Wisconsin, and people would ask me, well, Debbie, what genre do you write? And I'm like, genre? Well, I know what the word means, but I didn't have a genre. Well, I've written a couple poems. Well, and I kept some journals after 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and Hurricane Sandy. Like, you did? You need to write a book. So I did. There was a woman there by the name of Lisa Lickle, and unfortunately, Lisa isn't here today because fortunately, she is leaving the Kewaskum area here on this side of the state and moving not far from us in Mauston. So she's in the process of building a home. But Lisa was involved with a writers group. Is anyone here from the writers group? I don't think so. Well, yes, but not the writers group from Kewaskum. Sorry, Diane. Although Diane has come to a few. Diane is a fellow author also. And so there was this writers group, and what we would do is get together once a month, and a week or two before we would get together, we would send via email whatever we wrote that month. So there were people writing poetry, science fiction, romances, all different things. So they wanted you to submit probably not more than seven pages each month, but of course when I submitted 15, nobody complained, so I kept doing it. And they critiqued my book as I was writing it, and they gave me all sorts of ideas. And it was at one of the early meetings, Lisa Lickle said to me, "Debbie, I think you have something big here." And I didn't tell anyone at the time, but my stomach flipped upside down, and I thought, I don't think so. I'm just writing this for my grandkids. It was perfectly clear I had a mission. I was writing this book for my 10 grandkids. All grandchildren, raise your hands. Okay, so really raise your hand. And why am I reading the names? Because I'm nervous and I don't want to forget anybody. Paige, jump up and down. Kiana, Cassidy, Eliana, Timmy, Nathan, Olivia, Ethan. All right, and Olivia. And thank you kids all for being here. Only Evelyn isn't here. She's hunkering down in Alabama with her dad. So we wish she could be here, but we're happy she's safe and out of Florida. Most importantly, I want to thank my husband, Craig, who has always, always, always been supportive. Okay, now I'm going to cry. Of my volunteering. And even to the point where my mother-in-law, Gloria, sitting down here, say hi, Gloria, said to him one day, "Craig, why do you let Debbie go to those places in Milwaukee?" when I was doing disaster team in Milwaukee. And he was like, "Mom, I don't let her do anything. This is what she chooses to do." So Craig was supportive, and as I was writing the book, and I'd hop up from the bed in the middle of the night because I had a thought, and I'd be up for hours, he just tolerated and bared with me through all of that. So never wavering support. Thank you, Craig.
Remember that when we're at home?
And, like a true husband. Yes. And thanks to my daughters, Jen, Lisa, and Danielle, who listened to me go on and on endlessly about the book. I even apologized to Jen this week. I said, "I'm sorry I'm doing nothing but talking about this party." So they've been great, supportive. Okay, Elaine, my friend of 30 years, and Debbie and Chris, who have been friends for 45 years. We've been friends since sophomores in high school. Sorry to fess up to that, girls. They are just my best friends in the whole world. Now, Red Crossers. There's a bunch of Red Crossers here. Raise your hands. They're kind of all over there. These are the people that we would wake up in the middle of the night and go to fires in Jackson, West Bend. Sue and I went to a fire once because the kids whose parents were out of town, they were staying with neighbors, decided to hide the fireworks and blow them up inside the house so no one could see them. Needless to say, the fire department showed up and we had to wait for the parents to come back from their vacation. They weren't happy. So we've been to lots of fires and different things together. So it's been a pleasure, and I miss it, and I miss you guys. And thanks to those who helped me read my book. Now, some of you read it as I was doing things and gave me insight. So Gloria, my mother-in-law, thank you, Gloria. Mary Ellen, my sister-in-law, there. Diane, right here. Sue Colway, Barb Argerbright, say hi. And Paige, my muse, my inspiration. So thank you, all of you, for being a support and giving me all sorts of ideas and suggestions as I went along. Like I said, I started writing, and with Paige's help and Elaine's help, and met the Wisconsin Writers Association, which introduced me to the Moraine Writers Guild. So Lisa Lickle, who was involved in that group, also became my editor and a great mentor. She recommended the publishing company, Electio Publishing, out of Dallas, and so she gave me a lot of help and ideas along the way. Some of the things you'll find in the book when you do read it or take a look at it, and you know, odd things happen when you're publishing a book. You submit the book to the publisher, and then they do some magic to it and get it to look nice, and then they send you a galley so you can see how it's going to look. And I read every word carefully, which thank God I did. They had a different author in the copyright page. But what I missed is I had a table of contents and it disappeared, and I forgot I missed that. So there's no table of contents. But what you will find in there are my journals from 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, Northern New Jersey flooding. There's a chapter on where me and my family was on 9/11, heartfelt wishes from family and friends. Neil, if you would have answered your phone call, you and your wife had sent me a very nice message that would have been in there, but it didn't make it, so thank you. What happens to me every August, I kind of get emotional with 9/11 coming up. My conversation with Mike Wallace from 60 Minutes, I came out better than he did during that call. A chapter on compassion fatigue and why and when I stopped being a Red Cross volunteer. And then the last chapter, Remembrance, I wrote in New York City, much of it in Central Park, a year ago. There are 3 poems in the book. The first poem I found when I was in Washington after 9/11. And it's written by a man named Darrell Scott. He is the father of Rachel Scott. Do any of you know those names?
No.
Rachel Scott was the first girl shot in the Columbine High School shooting. And so he gave me permission to put his poem in the book. And then there's another poem called As We Remember Them that, you know, for some of you city folks, when you're walking in the big cities, people are handing you leaflets on the corners, and often they're about different religious things. So in Washington, I was walking and someone was handing them out, and I normally just, you know, ignore it and walk by. And this time the person said it's about 9/11. So I took it, and inside was a poem called As We Remember Them, and that was written by 2 Rabbi Jack Reamer and Sylvan Kamens. They live in Florida now. And when I got in touch with Rabbi Reamer, you know, thank God for the internet, I found him, and he said, yes, I give you permission to use my poem in your book under 2 conditions. One is that you get the permission from the other rabbi, and the other is that you send us a copy when it's published. And I was like, what? Now I have to follow through and finish this book. And so now they have received their copies of the book. The last poem is called St. Paul's Chapel, and I found that poem when I was in New York City in Manhattan after Hurricane Sandy, and another volunteer and I, on our day off, we got on the subway and we wanted to go see the 9/11 Museum and Memorial, and it wasn't open due to the water surge and the salt water that came in and flooded it. And there was this little church across the street, and we said, well, let's go in there and look at it. We both enjoyed visiting churches. And it turned out St. Paul's Chapel was really set up kind of like a museum. And to the volunteers, so remember from the news the pile of rubble that was gone through piece by piece, hand by hand, as emergency responders looked for bodies, body parts, search dogs were there. Well, they all went to St. Paul's Chapel for rest and respite, a place to sleep. They could lay down on the bench that George Washington sat in on the day of his inauguration. And it was in that chapel that I found the poem called St. Paul's Chapel, because it's at the base of where the World Trade Centers collapsed on 9/11. And not a stone was harmed. The cemetery wasn't harmed, and this was right across the street. So this gentleman there who volunteered, Chester Johnson, he gave me permission to put his poem in my book, and then invited me to New York last September for the 15th anniversary of 9/11. So I went there for that event and spent the day at the chapel and with the staff there, and it was a very heartwarming, emotional, and moving day. They have a bell there that tolled over 600 times for the volunteers who have died since 9/11 due to 9/11 diseases, heart diseases, lung diseases, cancers. And that bell was donated from the people of London, the same place that made the Liberty Bell, and they donated it to the people of New York after 9/11. And it tolls on different events, like the shooting in Oak Creek at the Sikh temple. So that was very emotional to be there during that time. All right, what isn't in the book? Just so you know, you are the only ones hearing this part of the story. So there's a woman at the American Red Cross in Milwaukee. She's in charge of the Wisconsin Red Cross. And she would be here, she could be, but she can't. Not only because she can't, and I'll tell you that in a minute, but she's also right now in Texas helping with the relief efforts there. But I went to her after my book was just about done. It still had some proofreadings to go through, and I I said, Patty, I'm writing this book about the Red Cross, or about my volunteering. It's not about the Red Cross, it's about my volunteering. But I want you to know, I don't want the Red Cross to be blindsided when it comes out and people say, well, who does Debbie McKinney think she is writing about the Red Cross? So she was very supportive, and she said, let me check on that and get back to you. So she checked on it, and the Red Cross wanted to read it. So I was fortunate to have 4 departments at the Red Cross read it. Their attorneys read it, their communications people, their PR people. They read it, and they came back with 13 suggestions of things I might want to change. Like, I would have gotten the NFL upset, and I would have been in violation with the Geneva Convention. Sorry. So I was really glad they read this book with me, because those things wouldn't have been cool. So what's not in the book is my brother-in-law, Mac, who lives in Virginia, sent me a letter while I was in Washington after 9/11 and said, Debbie, you're volunteering at the Super Bowl of disasters. Well, Super Bowl is trademarked by the NFL, and don't dare use that. And then the Geneva Convention, I went to a fire one night in Milwaukee, and it was at a housing project, and that's neither here nor there. But when you go to fires, there are lots of fire trucks, and there's some, you know, usually a police car or two with police officers. But this night there were police officers all over the place with bulletproof vests on long before they wore them as standard attire. So I asked one officer, I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, there's a man with a gun somewhere here. And I'm there, they're all in bulletproof vests, and I'm in a nylon jacket with this X on the back. So apparently you can't refer to the Red Cross looking like a target. That is in violation. The Geneva Convention is very clear that the Red Cross is the reverse of the Swiss flag, period. It's not anything else. So they didn't really want me telling about the drug house and house of ill repute that I responded to a fire one night. They thought that might have been kind of tacky, but actually as Red Cross members we always look for the families, and we were impartial, right, Red Crossers? Didn't matter who you were, what you did, whether you were legal, illegal, had insurance, didn't have insurance, were rich or poor, it didn't matter. We responded to everybody. The other thing that's not in there is when I was in Manhattan at a YMCA and Hurricane Sandy, we got to this YMCA and the city had just dropped off a bunch load of single people that had been in a city shelter, and so they were going to be closing down a shelter they had been moved to, and now they were going into these rooms. This was when, like a YMCA used to be, where you could get cheap rooms. And so the YMCA opened their doors to these evacuees from Hurricane Sandy, and one man came in and said, do you have any food here? I haven't eaten in 3 days. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm still full from breakfast. So we pooled our change as 3 volunteers there, not Red Cross. Red Cross gave us money for our meals and laundry and stuff, but we pulled our own personal dollars and went and got some sandwiches and shared some sandwiches that didn't go very far. Eventually they got some food there. That part you'll read about. But apparently the Red Cross didn't want me to say that we used our own personal money to feed the, you know, and that was fine. I made the changes they suggested because I don't want to be sued. So whatever they said was just fine with me. It didn't deteriorate the book. So have a good time today. I'm sorry if I forgot to thank anyone. Thank you all for being here. There are some people here from a book club. Raise your hand if you're from the book club. There we go, over here. And there. And I will be speaking at that book club next month, I think, in October. So they'll be reading my book, so I'm real excited about that. So have a good time, enjoy the garden center, enjoy the trains. There's snacks and drinks inside to the right, and there are My Rice Krispie treats. How many of you are familiar with My Rice Krispie treats? Right now, that recipe comes from Marilyn. I actually have 2 mother-in-laws there. Marilyn, raise your hand, and Gloria, raise your hand. I have been blessed to have 2 wonderful mother-in-laws, one from my first marriage, one from my marriage with Craig, and my father-in-law, Cloyd. So they have been wonderful, and I got the recipe from Marilyn. So these Rice Krispie treats are not made with marshmallows. And when I was in Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina, 55 of us shared a room, and we had one shower. I'll read you a couple passages in just a minute. But one night I made my Rice Krispie treats for all 55 of my roommates, and I made 4 batches. So today I only made 3, so eat lots, there's plenty. I do have a donation jar here for the Red Cross if you're so inclined. It doesn't matter to me. Once you do read the book, I would be delighted if you would go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon and leave a review, whatever you think is honest. And can you hand me that book on the table there? I hope there's bookmarks in it, yes. Okay, just a couple things from the books because I'm told by a reliable source that this is what you do at a book launch party. You share a couple things, and so this is from Hurricane Katrina when I was there, and this was on my day off. So I had gone to the coast with another volunteer. In the car, we head west and find our way into the city of Pass Christian. This is just about where the hurricane came on shore. On the way, we drive past miles of razor wire strung out to keep looters from getting into what remains of any houses. Every mile, there is a checkpoint with 2 military guards at each post. This time, we are allowed access. We weren't allowed access at another spot previously. Words cannot describe the breadth of destruction we see. We drive south through a canyon of debris, which reaches the rooftops of the few damaged homes which remain. We arrive at what used to be Highway 90, which runs east and west along the shore. We park and walk to the beach. On the beach, telephone poles float in the wet, lapping waves, along with plastic yard furniture. Then we see bones, hundreds of them. Most are about 6 inches, some are 8 or 9 inches, scattered across an area about 15 feet long. As we look at them, we speculate. Turkey, chicken, dolphin, seabirds, we don't know. They are too uniform and there are too many of them to be from pets. We drive slowly west on Highway 90 for about 10 miles. Ours is the only car in sight. On the north side of the road, there were once Ocean View homes. They are gone, all gone. There are concrete steps which lead to empty foundations. And then after, let's see, why didn't I highlight this? Okay, this is after flooding in New Jersey in 2010. We still go door to door to see how the families are from the floods of March 13th. Now this was on March 30th, 2010. From March 13th, it rains all day and we all get soaked. I wear a clear plastic poncho under my Red Cross vest, which is on this table here. I look pretty ridiculous. The rivers continue to rise. Many roads are impassable again, and it's almost impossible to get around. We are reminded that we may not drive through any roads completely covered by water. More than 4 inches of rain fell today. Tramping through the water and mud, we reach a man's home at the end of the road. We stop and ask him how he is. He's very grateful to see us. He says, "You are the first people to stop and see how I am. Thank you so much." He doesn't need any assistance. He simply appreciates our visit and caring. And so I hope you enjoy what you read in the book. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for being here today.